So we got our final and last topic. Do student
athletes
have NIL leverage?
So I really want to play this one. So this is a podcast. It's called Cover 3 Podcast. It's a college one, but I'm gonna just play it real quick and y'all just hear. And then it's really about what the whole Nick Saban situation.
Oh, I should do it.
And his program out on the recruiting trail. Nick Saban, hey bud, you're back. So, according to a coach who heard Nick Saban speak, I'm going to say that one more time. According to a coach who heard Nick Saban speak, that coach said that Nick Saban said, someone with one of the best corners in the nation came to me and asked if we'd pay $800,000 for the player to sign here. I told him he can find another place to play. I'm not paying a kid a bunch of NIL money before he earns it. Okay.
So that's just one of the parts. But on that part right there, and Nick Saban says he's not paying the kid a bunch of money that he hasn't earned it. My question is, with these high school kids coming out, especially these highly touted, because the one that I think that they're talking about has got to be this kid, the kid McCartney McLean that ended up committing to Colorado. Do they have a lot of leverage? Like these young kids coming out of high school have a lot of leverage because, like that kid, Jaden Rashada, who was first he was committed to Miami, then he flipped his commitment and go to Florida, and then come to find out was for he was apparently going to sign for $13 million, which that ended up flopping. So a lot of these kids now are going to start holding out until the end of the season to try to get the best suit. Which school who's really going to pay them the most money? And could this be a good leverage or could this be a bad leverage where a lot of these kids who thinking they're going to start going to these schools because they're going to pay them might end up missing out on schools where they're going to start filling up their rosters and just moving on, and they're going to be stuck trying to get into a school?
Well, me looking at this, this is a really good article. I kind of stumbled on this, but it kind of gives you top performing colleges with the NIL. Number one is Texas A&M. The evaluation, $85K. Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia's number 4. Alabama's number 5. So what the hell Nick Saban crying about? Because he's in the top 10 of doing it, and it has a really good breakdown of all the players, the richest NIL deal playmakers. But leverage. So in the beginning, I would say In the beginning, I said, it gave him a leverage. But truthfully, the way the college football is set up, to me, I don't know if the kids will ever have actual leverage because they're still making money off them. They're still going to pay. They're still going to make people are not going to stop watching college football. Number one, I mean, it's such a brand. I mean, it's such a big name. If anything, it gives the players a little bit of leverage, and truthfully, it gives teams leverage too, to me. So I think it's a win-win. Some teams, you know what I think it is? Let me say this. I think people like Nick Saban and of that old school, well, they are old school, but of that mind of thinking, they probably knew this was coming. But you know how something comes, you're like, I'm planning for it, or I'm not going to plan for it because I'm Nick Saban. I'm this. I will figure it out. And then once that happened, it hit so hard. It's like, oh shit! Like this can really affect our program in a really bad way if we don't start digging more in our pockets. Now, it's not as if they have deep pockets anyway. But to directly answer your question, I think it gives them leverage, but not on equal footing with the schools, because the schools are always going to have the leverage, regardless if some of these players are getting some of these NIL deals. And at the end of the day, there are going to be some students where they'll be like, okay, I want the NIL deal, but if I got to take less to go to this school because it'll be better for me, they'll do it. I believe a kid is not going to go to a school and take $3 million, but you ain't gonna never hear about them again.
Yeah.
Like there are gonna be some kids who are like, nah, you know what? I'll just take this. You know, they offer me $2 million over here at this school that nobody knows, but then Nick Saban's offered me a mil or half a mil, and he's guaranteeing me a job. I won't, I'll start. I'll get, certain type of connections I wouldn't be able to get at this school. I'm gonna go here. So it gives them. To me, it doesn't level the playing field out, but it just gives them a little bit more leverage. The players, the student athletes.
I don't know. I don't know if it really gives them a lot of leverage because I mean they can use NIL and be like especially like kids that's on campus that's at like whatever Alabama or USC and they want more money because they feel as if they're a good commodity and their draft stock the following year is looking like they're gonna be a first round pick.
Yeah.
It might give that student, that athlete, some type of leverage. But even then, when you're at a school like Alabama, who already puts kids in the NFL and can just easily get a high school kid and come bring them in, and he can start right away, and they can push to get him into the NFL things. Schools like Alabama won't have to drop that kind of money. That's the thing that I think a lot of these young kids and high school kids and these student athletes are going to realize is that schools like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, they don't really have to drop the money for you. They can easily just use their name and brand to get a kid to come in, let them know, hey, you can really just go to the NFL coming from our program. We can get you to the NFL. It's shown. Georgia's shown us. Georgia's been doing that even before they won a national championship. Alabama's been doing that. Ohio State's been doing that. USC been doing these big prominent schools that's always putting kids in the NFL already shown they could do it without the NIL money. That is just a perk. Yeah. That's just something that's just like a big perk, like a feather in the hat that's earned. So they can sell it to the kid like, hey, either you can come here play for us, get developed and become a top draft pick, and then go to the NFL and really get that big money, those $30 million definitely guaranteed. Or you can come here and we can give you $1 million, but who's to say you're going to be in the NFL depending on how your development is? Because if you're so much worried about getting your NIL money now, where's your focus at when it's time to put it on the field? So it's a big difference they can sell. Like, like a CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, they got you see the money that they got, but that was, this was prior to what they were already doing. They pretty much already solidified themselves, and I bet you it's not. This right here is probably nowhere near what they really worth. But when they get to the NFL, they about to get paid what they really worth.
Yeah.
So, long story, long-winded, but I don't really think it's I don't think it's a legitimate leverage, but I do believe it's something for those kids that are going to be like a Stetson Bennett, a 6th-round pick.
Yeah,
this would be good for them.
Yeah. That was a good topic. Yeah,
we've
been talking about this.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, we just been talking about this NIL, deal and how everything's shaking out, and when it first came out, and it's just interesting how it's shaking out. But just like anything, it was something that really took the world by storm, and I think it's just going to start to, it's always going to be there. It's never going nowhere. I'm happy for the player. The player should have been paid, but for some players, it's not going to be the determining decision. They still want to go to those SEC schools and the schools that can really help them as more tailor fit towards them and can put them in position to go, because the goal is the NFL. Yeah. So, and I mean, look at that. So if they learn about, you learn about financial literacy. So what are these players getting? So Bryce Young got $3.2 million. That's what he got.
Well, his NIL valuation. So that's just what he's valued at. That's just what he's valued at. So, now his earnings it could be a completely different thing.
So so it's half of that, and then whatever. I mean, taxes and depending on what state you're in. I mean, if you're in Texas, that's a gold mine. But if you're somewhere like California, my God, like them taxes are crazy. Like you're gonna see a quarter of that. So but these a lot of these college kids have advisors, hopefully, to advise them on money wise. But I agree with you. Like I said, it's a little leverage, but not a lot of leverage. But good thing they're getting paid. So I didn't mean to cut you out, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Because you made a good point. But as far as I'm always advocate of student athletes getting their money. You play the game for entertainment purposes for people, but at the same time not getting compensated for it. That's don't make sense. So this should have been happening since long before, not just introduced to new players, because you got to think about a lot of college players that could have benefited of this, even insurance policies on themselves back in the 90s and early 2000s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even long before that, Bo Jackson played two sports that ended up hindering him, and actually his whole football and baseball career because of what he accomplished, because what he was playing. So to my point, it was like, yeah, this will help, but as far as they have a lot of leverage on what they want to do now, because people are dropping out if they're not getting the right NIL deal, which, because you agreed upon something, you can't backtrack on a player, because that means that you're not doing good business. So at the same time, you got to do what's best for yourself and find a school that's going to give you the proper NIL deal for what you want to play for.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.